We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We don't have a quorum yet, but we're going to go with the information items first. So Bill should call the roll, though, I think. Susan Bradley. All right. Samantha Sample Kenny. Terry Lindenberg. Laylo Hammond. Andrew Mills.
Here.
Mary Beth. Not yet. Deanna Solis. Walter Steed.
Here.
Teresa Votter. David White.
Here.
We have 5 members. Now we have 6. Mary Beth just showed up, so we can do regular order. So we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any changes or additions to the agenda from members or staff?
Not from the staff.
Members? Okay, no changes. We will run the agenda in the order it is presented. First item will be the consent agenda, the minutes of the September 30, 2025 RAC meeting. Questions, comments, changes, or a motion?
I, Andrew Mills, would like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Andrew made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Samantha. Comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Minutes of September 30 are approved. Next is action items. The RAC public statement disclaimer. Jason Rose,
Good morning.
ready, set, go.
Let's go. I do not have a presentation. Pretty simple item after we had a pretty, I think, robust discussion last meeting. So this is just bringing that disclaimer forward to recommend, actually, so we're seeking recommendation from the RAC to forward the disclaimer to the executive board. Since the RAC is a committee of the executive board, that's where we route things. So the disclaimer itself can be found on page 5 of the agenda. And I've listed a couple options. We have a couple that we would put on our website. So a statement about the RAC, which is a standard disclaimer that we already use. A statement for our website as to be used as a disclaimer in case we're publishing something from a member of the RAC. And then a disclaimer for members to use themselves. And so I'll just go ahead and read that and then we can talk about it. So we say the author serves on the Valley Regional Transit Regional Advisory Council, a standing committee that advises agency initiatives, collaborates on mobility issues, and represents community perspectives. Views expressed are those of the author and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the RAC or VRT. And that is the disclaimer as we've drafted it. We talked about this in our leadership agenda meeting that we do on alternating months, and now we just stand for review and approval. So I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Questions, comments? Andrew, you started this. That's not an accusation, it's a fact.
That is an accusation and a fact.
Comments, or what do you think?
Well, do you all agree with what I wrote?
We're not talking about what you wrote. We're talking about the items on the agenda to have the disclaimers attached to certain things.
I think it would be a good idea just to keep VRT out of hot water.
Other comments, questions?
Like to write up.
Okay, all in favor of approving the proposed or presented RAC public statement disclaimers, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Jason, we have a deal.
Excellent. One last note. So we talked about doing profiles for anyone that's interested.
We don't
Wait a minute, we have to take a motion on that.
motion in second.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Anybody have a motion? Anybody care?
I will move that we accept the disclaimer verbiage as presented.
Thank you, Samantha. Do we have a second?
A second?
Second by David. Any?
Okay, I'm going to try it one more time. So what we have to have is a motion to move it to the board for approval.
Okay, I move that.
That's what I-
Thank you,
That-
Paula.
Paula, I'm not saying I think you're right, but that is not how it is on the agenda. So what are we doing?
Hold on.
Okay, from what Jason described was we don't get to decide at the Regional Advisory Council level whether or not something is approved or not. What we have to do is recommend for approval by the board.
The memo says it, the agenda does not. So that's on me.
Which way do you want us to go?
I think how we did it's great. Recommend for approval to the board, or to the executive board.
I move to recommend this for approval to the executive board.
Do we have a second? That's a second from David. Any
Nailed it.
further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Paula, we're going to miss you.
Quick note, I guess I should say on further discussion. We talked about doing a profile or some kind of an interview for anyone that might be interested. So we do have Nick, who is our digital media coordinator, communications coordinator is what we have, yeah, something like that, to get some video. If anyone wants to do a video testimonial after the meeting about why you're on the rack, why you care about what we're doing here, we would love that. It seemed to go in line with this disclaimer. So there we go.
All right, moving on, item 4B, another action item, Digital Accessibility Project, WCAG 2.1 Level AA, Melody Roper. Welcome.
Good morning. I have interacted with a few of you and I've seen all of you at RAC meetings, but I've never presented to you. So hi, I'm Melody Roper and I forgot my name tag. So ask me about my name many times. Jason is going to pull up my slides and I am going to pull up my cheat sheet, my notes. And I thought because I haven't presented to the RAC before, I would briefly introduce myself and the why our marketing and creative projects manager is presenting to you about accessibility. For the time being, I'm going to be acting as our accessibility coordinator as we implement a new standard at VRT of web content accessibility guidelines. I've been with VRT for 3 years now. I have a very eclectic career history. I taught public school for a few years. I worked in soft goods manufacturing and worked in the outdoor industry for a good while. And in all of those projects, accessibility is a big passion of mine and was always the core of what I was doing. So since coming on at VRT, we have developed my position a fair bit. This is not the title I started with. And it has been a big guiding force of just coming from a passenger focus on all of our information. Any information that we're putting out there, it's really important to me that it is centered on accessible design. If everyone can use it, it's better for everyone. If I design to the least or most disadvantaged person, we are going to find ourselves with a more accessible system for all. It only improves the experience for anyone who uses it. So
Melody, I am going to interrupt you. I just want to say, first of all, Susan, I'm really glad you're here in person because you've been asking for these things for some time. And we're finally going to have him. And I'm really glad we have somebody like Melody on staff who is not just doing the job of creating these standards, but cares about them deeply enough to make sure that everything is really good. So good job, both of you.
thank you, Elaine. Thanks, Andrew. We have 9 slides in front of us and then a discussion, and it's so much content. So I am going to temper myself and try and get to the discussion part quick because I want your takes on what we're doing here. But just to set the tone before we get into the like legalese bits, accessibility matters. This is not news to anyone who is on the RAC. But I really like Haben Girma. She is a blind deaf individual who consulted with the DOJ Civil Rights Office on WCAG or WCAG, our Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or their adoption of that rather, and also is just a advocate for rights for all in general. And I'm just going to read a quick quote from her. She said, "The only difference between accommodations for non-disabled and disabled people is ableism. And as we learn to notice ableism around us, as we learn to see it, paraphrasing, we can better remove it and from our spaces, creating a world that works better for everyone. There's this myth out there that non-disabled people don't need help, but you'll note we provided chairs for all of you. That's money that was spent to have that accommodation, whereas someone who came in a wheelchair would have brought their chair with them. We provide lights, that's an accommodation for sighted people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have accommodations around us all the time, and we're spending money on those. And so we are aiming to take this opportunity to use it as a launching point to enable us to better design all of our content, all of our processes to serve the whole community, everyone. So digital accessibility is making sure everyone can read, watch, click, use however they need to interact with it, online material without any barriers. And next slide. Thank you, Jason. So the American with Disabilities Act Title II is about infrastructure access, and it has covered physical infrastructure for a long time. And as of upcoming April 2026, it will now cover digital accessibility as well. So there is a compliance method or element to this, but I care a lot less about what we have to do and more of the sweet. We have an excuse to do this thing we could have been doing all along, and now we can focus on these rights. So VRT is committing to adopt the WCAG 2.1 AA as our standard. I'm going to define that here in a second. And we are committing to meet the compliance deadline as required by the Department of Justice Civil Rights Office. Yes, Susan. Yes, can you mic your background?
Susan,
Yeah, turn your.
Susan,
Susan's.
we need you on the mic, please.
Thank you.
Okay. The National Federation of the Blind has what we call Washington Seminar, where we have a group of people that go back to Washington and talk to our congressmen from each state. And I've participated in this for several times, multiple times. But and we always have three things that affect the blind that we present on. One of them that we've presented on multiple times is for digital things to be accessible.
Yes. Right now, as of September 30th, the latest numbers say that the internet, like the whole thing we're talking about, is 3% digital accessible. 97% of the internet is not currently accessible to everyone. That's wild. So VRT's working on it. It's a process. And
Glad.
me too. And thank you for your advocacy too, because it takes a lot of caring people to get to the point where we are. Jason, can you stick me to the next one?
And let me interrupt you at that point. As the only person in here that has no idea, what is WCAG?
Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And that was developed by the World Wide Web Consortium. When you see that written out, it'll be W3C. And WCAG, the WCAG is an international thing, and it is a global guiding document that the DOJ decided to adopt. So the European Advocacy Agency also uses it, as well as Canada. It's sweeping and moving outward. And Jason, you can just toss all my goals up there. Thank you. So our goals with this project are to ensure equal access to all digital services. Everyone should be able to access them. To build accessibility into our content creation, our procurement, and our maintenance. This is going to impact every arm of VRT, and the goal is to incorporate accessibility into our planning for anything that we do. It's going to be something, it's not a box to be checked. It is something to think about, consider, and apply, because it's really hard to see through other people's eyes. It's really hard to experience someone else's experience, and you really only know what you know. So we are going to look at how we can look at that from a wide range of perspectives, establishing clear accountability and consistent processes, and protecting VRT from legal and compliance risk. You can toss us 2 slides forward. Andrew's got a comment.
It's not a box to be checked. It's a human to be helped.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's real people that just want to have the same rights that everybody else thinks they have. We should have. So our web content and accessibility guidelines, so many words on a screen, I'm sorry, but I figured I should toss up at least the definition, is an internationally recognized set of technical standards published by the World Wide Web Consortium to ensure web content is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, or we're going to come back to that acronym, and for people with disabilities, for everyone. Level AA includes all level A and level AA success criteria. So level A is truly just the most basic requirements, these huge barriers that are there, knocking them down a little bit. Level AA is our target level to meet, and it's adding more requirements that address increasingly complex and very common barriers that are experienced by a lot of people. And level AAA is our goal. We're going to use that as a guide, but it's not always practical for us to be able to achieve those things at our level of employees, et cetera. And it is definitely going to help us identify best practices and guide our goals. So in examples of AAA are including sign language interpretation for any video that we post, contrast ratio of 7:1, and other more stringent readability standards. We're using that as a goal, but not always going to be what we're going to meet. Next slide.
And I just would mention here, this is one of the places where AI ultimately, I think, will end up being very helpful. We don't have the staff to do all of this, but we can build in some AI tools that will allow us to do it. It'll probably be a couple of years as it shakes out and how it gets used and how it's available to us to use, but really look forward to that.
Yes. So before we take a look at the specifics, you can put our perceivable up there. There are, WCAG has provided us with this guiding philosophy, these guiding principles that are less about the specifics and more of just an overarching view of what we're trying to do with this. So our first guiding principle is that the content is perceivable. So information is needs to be presented in a way that any user can perceive. Next, we are looking, our information will be operable. Interfaces must be usable with different input methods. It doesn't matter what's impacting how someone interfaces with a screen or with digital content. You might have broken your arm. You might have had any sort of things that come up. Maybe you're carrying a bunch of groceries and you're on the app and you need to be able to get your ride with only one hand. It just, I can never stop harping on the it helps everyone horse. So operable interface can use any variety of different input methods. Understandable, meaning that our information has predictable navigation, plain language. All information and operation must be clear and predictable. And lastly, that it is robust. Content must be compatible with assistive technologies. There's a lot of different things people use to access technology, and it needs to be able to be used by that technology, which a fun little side note, the costs in marketing that we can save here are hilariously overlapped, because as we use better alt text, as we have cleaner code on our websites, it makes it easier for computers to read it. That's what assistive technologies are. They're computers that are transmitting that information. So that means Google can better read our code, and it's going to bump us up in the search results. Our SEO will be increased as we make more accessible technology. So it's awesome. Next slide. So we are requesting that you recommend to the executive board to adopt this procedure. And we are writing a policy in which we're outlining, here's just what's included in that policy. All websites, apps, documents, videos, and online tools will be covered. Any digital content that involves VRT is covered by the policy. This is going to apply to both public-facing and internal content. So our operator training videos, our internal documents that we share, our RAC PDF agendas and memos, all of these things are included. This also is going to apply to our staff, our contractors, and our vendors. So anyone that we work with also needs to be in compliance. And once again, that accessibility is considered during planning and development and maintenance. Next, we're going to look at a timeline. This is our implementation plan. And for the sake of time, I'm going to fly through it. We are currently at phase 2. Phase 1 was assessment and planning, researching, reading, learning, all of those good things, baseline audits to identify the barriers. Right now, we are in remediation, review, and staff training. I'm seeking your recommendations on what I've got so far and establishing procedures for ensuring our content is accessible. Then, following the adoption of the procedure and policy, we will be fully implementing and verifying that it said implementation went well. And that will include a mandatory accessibility training for staff, conducting a comprehensive audit using both automated and manual testing methods, which I've got more content on that we're not going to talk about unless you're curious. And then once we are at that April compliance goal deadline, this is not over. It is maintenance and continuous improvement. WCAG 2.2 just released 3 weeks ago. So it is that next level of thing, right? This is always going to be a living document that is increasing and improving. So we will monitor our materials to make sure we're still meeting all of those requirements, and anywhere that we can get new best practices and improved practices. Let's skip over our compliance process and go to, yes, thank you. So Jason is going to kindly pass out my checklist. So POUR is our guiding philosophy. What does that actually mean in practice? Here is the definitely not comprehensive list. However, the most comprehensive list I can get on a single sheet for you. So this is the actual step-by-step, what are we checking as we go through our things? What are the requirements that help us reach that POUR phase? And
Melody,
yes, Walter.
how much of this is DOJ boilerplate? And how, and if I'm not saying it is, but if the answer was all of it, how much of it's manageable, manipulable, revisable here with VRT?
So everything that is on this sheet is mandated by the Department of Justice. So we need to be in compliance with each of these elements. That level A, level AA, and level AAA, the level 2A is the compliance level by the Department of Justice Civil Rights Office. So Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act now covers Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 level AA. That is what we must do and would have potential consequences if we do not do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just curious whether what we're hearing is this is what we created in-house, or we're just here to explain to you what we were told we needed to do.
Yes.
Which doesn't matter which way the answer is, but
So the WCAG 2.1 level AA is a couple thousand page document that I have been poring over.
say pouring or boring?
Oh, I love it. So only pouring. I would never abhor. And it is surprisingly enigmatic for being a new thing that is applying to everyone. And it's more so that it's just very dense and a lot to understand. And I think as time goes on, there will be more supports created. This checklist in particular, I took and adapted from a Russian woman, actually, who wrote a very thorough guide on how to make your websites and apps accessible. And it was, in all of my research, one of the most succinct like TLDRs of, too long didn't read, of the WCAG guidelines, and gave really helpful, specific, and measurable tasks to complete these aspirational activities. Like, we need to be able to articulate how we make it accessible in order to be held accountable to that. So it is a combination of made in-house and a lot of collaboration. We also have our public participation work group that is a collection of local agencies. Jason's in a PIO, Public Information Officer work group that's also collecting. I've got some friends in IT at ITD that I've been working with on it. And a lot of agencies are working together to try and figure out how we are going to achieve these tasks.
Okay.
So we are, next slide, please, going to shortly move into discussion. And I have a couple of buckets for you. So I've got my RAC asks Mel questions and my Mel asks the RAC questions. So on the blue banner, we have your overall impressions, and that's just space to share any thoughts that don't fit into another bucket. Next, we have concerns or challenges. As you reviewed your packet, as you heard me talking about this, what pitfalls do you see in how we're going about this? What have you already experienced or seen as a challenge at VRT? And then opportunities. How do you want to be involved? I'll have you hold for one more moment. Thank you. Oh, you're not even there. Next, we have my questions for you that's less let me know or ask me, more I ask you. Assistive technology is something I don't have a lot of experience with. I do have my own. Do you know that 26% of Americans are disabled? So many, 1 in 4, more than 1 in 4, 1 in 5, math. And I am an individual who uses mobility aids. I don't always need mobility aids, but times come up in my life where I need that. I'm also incredibly autistic and have ADHD. School was really hard for me as a wee youth. I am very familiar with not being able to read. And I know those kinds of assistive technologies, but there are so many other kinds of things that I just have no scope for. I have not ever needed to rely on keyboard navigation or a screen reader. So if you have experience with those, I would love to hear about it. Community impact in your communities. What have you heard? Have you heard about WCAG? Has your organization done anything about it? Have you heard about any resources? And then testing methods. I need help. Our testing methods is the spot where I am feeling most insecure about applying my goals. We have reached out to our partners and things are looking fantastic. We've got some really good recommendations. Of the automated testing, I'm hearing that for that kind of testing, it really only spits out about a 25 to 40% accuracy on barriers it identifies. So it's really only getting that low hanging fruit. The user is always the best tester. And so getting ideas from individuals who have a diverse range of needs is going to be really helpful on that testing, because I can put a Chrome or a Windows add-on that simulates certain things and kind of can help me see it in the way that someone else might interact, but it isn't the same as being there. So that is what I am hoping to discuss with you all. And I am just going to steal the screen from Jason so we can take notes while we talk. So the time is now all of yours. Andrew.
I've already got one. So I used to, I'm not anymore, disclaimer, be on the Idaho Council on Developmental Disabilities, and they're part of the consortium for Idahoans with disabilities. I was wondering if you've reached out to them for testing?
I have not yet, but I will note down the Idaho Consortium for
Or disabilities? The Consortium for Idahoans with Disabilities.
solid. Oops. And I will check that out.
And that includes the State Independent Living Council, the Idaho Council on Developmental Disabilities, and a smattering of other organizations.
Oh, thanks. All right. So that is a good resource to tap into. And
I can ask
Noted.
specific people if they'd be willing. I know some who are blind, like completely blind, and if they would be willing to test.
yeah, we'll need to look at options for like organizing community testing.
Susan, did you have something?
Yes, Deanne Solis, who's on this committee, works over at the Commission for the Blind and uses all kinds of assistive technology. And I'm the chapter president of the National Federation of the Blind chapter here in Treasure Valley. And so I have numerous people who could work with you and help you, give you, answer questions and test things out.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne.
Who else? Up on the screen, the first column is overall impressions. Anybody want to volunteer? This is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. It's the most wonderful thing I've seen in a week. Susan?
I already gave my impression. I think it's great. And the national organization of NFB has been working on stuff like this for years.
Yeah, this is a long-term project, and I'm just really excited that it's like in writing now, that it's expected. It's awesome.
Anyone else? Andrew?
I have another connection for you. I work for the YMCA, And I do know several disabled people there who I can ask about this if they want.
Yeah, put out some feelers on the WCAG, see if anyone, if their ears burn when they hear that acronym. Does it mean something to them?
Will do.
Sweet.
I've already asked. Yeah, they're up for that.
They are open to a tabling there. Any of
And I know the perfect place to do a tabling too.
Perfect. Any concerns or challenges that you have identified, even in our existing VRT content, a little add to our audits?
I can tell you all that I'm concerned that we're going to set a high bar, which we should. It's going to be really hard to stay at that high bar level without missing something along the way. And so that's the challenge. The concern is that we make sure that our customers know that where our goal is and that we will consistently strive to meet that goal, but to try and be patient with us, at least in this first little while, because I suspect we'll have some misses here and there.
I suspect your suspicion is correct.
I'm not sure who to direct this to, but we get a report every meeting, and it's later in here, about the number of people that have contacted VRT in one fashion or another. Do you have any, are you making hash marks on a wall about how many people say, I tried to do this on the web, but because of so-and-so, I can't or couldn't?
Ah, nice. I was going to ask Jason to speak, and now he's coming over here.
Probably within the customer service feedback. And is that a category currently that we track? So that's something we could add, though. I think it's a great point that we could add that to our customer service feedback form. So it'll be just embedded with that customer service report.
Yeah, I know that when, I call the 800 number for whatever and meet little Ms. AI. If it doesn't work, I quite often will comment to the real person when I get them, you need to tweak that because you can't figure out what they're asking you to do or what they're telling you to do or whatever. So if you're picking up any of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll connect we'll add a kind of a customer service review to a layer to this. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jason has been working with the executive management team to review how each VRT department is going to be applying this, because it does touch everything that we touch. So we want to make sure that it's a part of all of those areas. And yeah, I love the customer service report recommendation.
Anyone else, anything else? Yes, ma'am.
So, as you were saying, it touches everything you do. It does. How are you prioritizing areas?
What a
Start and, like,
great question. So that gets a little bit into our audit process. And what we are doing is creating essentially an inventory of anything that could be audited. And then we are giving a score to those things and to give a ranking of what order of operations we want to go with there. And we're prioritizing high touch areas first. So our website is a huge element. We're waiting to hear back from UMO, our payment portal, on where they're at with this in those regions, those kinds of things. And then I'm a bite off more than I can chew human. And so I'm like, oh, we'll just do it all. And ultimately, we have to chunk it. Exactly. There's no way we can do it all at once. So we've got our list of priorities and we're going to work through those. And it's just, while it does apply to both public facing and internal, to me, it's important to do the largest area of impact first. So there's 49 VRT employees or somewhere thereabouts, and there are 750,000 Treasure Valley people. So the things that hit those people first, that's where my priority starts. And we're going for highest areas of impact first and then working from there. And hopefully, as we implement our procedure of how we manage these things, it will become self-reinforcing and perpetuate out from those higher impact areas that we've already hit. It's going to naturally impact our internal communication as well. Mary Beth. Well, actually, before Mary Beth, Samantha, was that covered? Okay, thank you.
Morning. Morning. So I'm wondering, and I appreciate this list. I read through it in the packet. And I know that VRT had made changes to their website a couple of years ago and made it easier to navigate. How close is VRT to complying with all? Not very close.
Well, I laugh because I'm overwhelmed. And it's kind of exciting as I've been doing research in the last year on this to see how much the last 3 years of work that I've been directly involved with have already been getting us to that 2.1 era. The changes in our route information, the changes in our colors, the changes in how we are presenting things, we are doing really well on a lot of our big public facing things. It's more we've done a really good job of this like baseline. The biggest barriers have already been knocked down. But our website, even though it's a lot easier to navigate now, there's still a lot of areas where the HTML code is not clean per se. And so if I was tabbing through and navigating on a keyboard, I could fall into a trap and be stuck in the center of the page and have to close the window to start again. And that's really frustrating. Or in our booking app, there are places where you might get booted when you're trying to book a ride because the touch targets don't match. You have to have very nimble fingers. And there are things that just are really common frustrations for any user that are a little bit harder to see if you don't know to look for them. And so I would say we're closer than many, and we have a long ways to go. If I were to pull a number out of the air, I'd say we're about 72% of the way there. It's 64.
I'm going with the 74 number.
Glad you see it that way.
It's a step by step by step.
Yes.
And you have to appreciate where you've come.
Yeah, and I could give us more pats on our back for where we have gotten to. And I see where we can go, and I'm really excited about it. So there's a lot to do, but we're at the point where it's more a matter of doing it and less a matter of figuring out how to start, where to go, what to do, because we have a really good foundation and a lot of buy-in from the leadership, which is helpful and really good. Any other comments for me and or this presentation?
Apparently I need to drink water. Anyway, with the assistive technologies, the blind people I've talked to say they prefer audio over Braille.
So Braille just celebrated its 200th bicentennial. Exciting. So that's fun.
You've got to be about the only one of 6 people in this room that know that.
No way. I know Susan knew. I'm guessing. Did you? Yeah. And Braille is still very commonly used by many, and a lot of blind people don't learn Braille. A lot of blind people do learn Braille. It just depends on the scenario. And there are a large population of people who are in the blind deaf category. And so people access technologies in a wide range of ways, and we want to hit as many of those ways as possible. And we've already started all of our governance videos, the executive board, the board videos. You might have noticed I've successfully got captions syncing with them now, so they're all getting captions. If you go back and rewatch them, these are things that we don't have to do until next April, but they're good to do now. And we are looking at increased alt text, improving our alternative text. And it's really important that that describes both the words that people are saying as well as the visuals. I love books. Books take you on wonderful journeys. If you're creating content, don't just share what the words are, share what you're seeing, what can be interpreted on that. So yes, audio is amazing and good. Braille is amazing and good. Transcripts are amazing and good. We're trying to make sure we get as many people, everyone should be able to access the bus. It is not a special need. That term has been retired, because if I go to a restaurant and want to read their menu, eating is not a special need. Everyone does that. I should be able to access that menu if I cannot interface with that. Yeah, all the good stuff. Any other questions for me? Here's my contact as well if you so desire it.
Questions, comments? Okay, somewhere in here I made a note that staff is looking for a recommendation to the board. I feel like we used to have the anticipated or expected item to vote on in the agendas, but it's not in this item either. Okay, so why don't you tell us what motion you're looking for, and we'll see whether or not we can approve it.
I am hoping for the RAC to recommend the executive board adopt this WCAG guideline procedure and standard as VRT's standard. That was redundant. Thank you, Susan.
I second. I need to stand further from the mic.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, it's the board of directors versus the executive board.
Susan moves that the board of directors.
I second. I, Andrew Mills, second.
Thank you. Thank you
Discussion.
for your time.
Anyone else? We're not done yet.
Oh, sorry.
Anyone else? Anything?
May I say something, Mr. Chair?
You may, please.
Thank you. Melody, thank you for your work on this.
If it doesn't have to do with the motion, let's finish that.
Oh, no, it has nothing.
Then we will let you say what you wish, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Motion on the floor, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Melody, thank you for your work on this. It was fascinating reading through all of this, just the details of it. And you know, as somebody who uses and has used public transit for a long time, it can be so complicated and so frustrating sometimes that I can't imagine all the barriers that have been in place over so many decades, you know, for this to be accessible to all people. So having these changes made, for me, I think of the quality of life for folks, for all people who in the past have had barriers to use public transit, the access to being able to get to work, to entertainment, to family, to fellowship. And, I work at the Boise Public Library and I interact with a lot of people who have had a lot of barriers in the past to even have access to the public library. And so I'm just so thankful for this work when I just think of what it's going to do to help people have a better life. So thank you for that. I just have to say that because it just is so inspiring to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And it is the definition of standing on the shoulders of giants. Because, yeah, people have done a lot of really hard work to get us to this point, and I'm really excited about it. So thank you for your thanks. And thank you, RAC, for your motion and your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is the first information item under VA, which would be Jason Rose, talking about Regional Advisory Council member renewals. Jason, you're up. By the way, the clock on the wall is still on daylight savings time, I think.
Is that an action item or? Hello, members of the RAC. We have up for renewal 2 members, and we've actually heard from both of them to whether to renew or not. The first being Walter, who had emailed us yesterday, a couple days ago, indicating that he's interested in staying on and powering through.
Yes, and then the one we heard from that said, I think, didn't say it this way, but my interpretation was that, what's the math, 19 years? Since 2006
Yeah.
is probably plenty of time. I didn't know the RAC had been around that long.
Well, it was called the regional.
Something,
Nation, yeah.
and that's Terry Lindenberg, who's not here today. But she indicated by email in the last day or two that she would not wish to re-up. So go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, we were just talking, Paula and I, yesterday about how we can sort of commemorate that time for Terry. Obviously, she's not here today, so we'll try to find a time in the future to recognize her time because she's been on for
Long time.
a long haul. Yeah.
She was. So a couple of things about that. Compass always has a luncheon at Christmas time, and we will recognize Terry at that luncheon. We will also recognize her, ask if she can maybe come to the next meeting and recognize her there as well. So if you are interested in the luncheon, let us know. I think we can get you a ticket.
And we can send out more information.
Yeah, put out a date and time.
Yeah. Yep, we can do that.
I may be jumping ahead of your speech, but the memo we've got or the packet item we've got talks about being reappointed by this chair. Is that really what it is? Does this not have to go to the board to re-up somebody or
The handbook just says,
appoint somebody new?
I believe the handbook
Paula-
says,
Paula asked Terry if she had anybody in mind that might be a good person to take her place. One moment, I see you. So what's the process, Paula?
You don't have to do anything. If you want to renew, you renew. If we get a new person, you guys have the opportunity to comment on it. You don't get to approve or disapprove.
If you review the application,
Yep, you get to
We
review
review
the
the
application. And then it goes before the executive board rather than the board of directors. We're a committee of the executive
Okay.
board. So the
okay.
executive board approves new regional advisory council members.
Andrew, you had something?
I had someone who I thought, actually 2 people I thought of immediately for the replacement. I know that sounds bad, but I did.
Well, work with Jason regarding who they are, how to contact them, and we'll look into it and get them applications if appropriate.
yeah, I would say if anyone has any recommendations, because I think we do have a couple open seats. So just in general, send nominations or folks on. We can do especially now that Terry's not going to have a seat, we can do a quick check on what seats are available and maybe put up some information out to the group. to show vacancies. I mean, Terry's been on for quite a long time. I'm not sure when it was established, but obviously she represented Treasure Valley Transit. So that's something to consider.
What I was going to say is this, right now, besides Terry, RAC doesn't have any other representatives who run transportation service. And I think it's an important point of view. And so it may not be the only seat that we can fill this time, but I will certainly be out looking for someone who can provide that point of view for us.
I don't remember if this is the group that has some geographical restrictions on how many people from where.
Yeah, just between the two counties there are.
Okay,
Yeah.
so take that into consideration as well, whatever it happens to be. So this is an information item. No action is requested or required. Anything else, Jason?
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Mr. Hunt. Transportation Development Plan update, please. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Stephen Hunt, Chief Development Officer of VRT, and I'm just here to provide information or an update on the Transportation Development Plan, the TDP. I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to be speaking to the memo that's in the packet. So in 2023, that was the last time that we had our first and last time that we had our TDP formally adopted. It's past due for an update. What the TDP does is it drives our expenses and revenues, budget forecast for the next 5 years. And it takes all those revenues and it categorizes them as local, federal, and directly generated. And then we take the projected local funds that we're needing for those to meet those expenses, and we distribute those among our funding partners through the cost allocation model. The TDP then breaks down those projected needs by fiscal year and identifies the local funding requests that we'll be making of each of our funding partners. And that breakdown is essential for VRT and our to plan for operating and capital programs. And it is necessary for our funding partners to develop their annual budgets. It also helps us coordinate our funding with Compass. Compass is the regional planning organization for our region. And the TDP also provides each funding partner with details of specific service and capital projects that are planned for each year and allows VRT and our partners to consider the benefits of those projects. As we are looking to update this TDP, there are a couple of assumptions that we made going into it. And the first is that we are going to be carrying forward all of our existing services. So we're looking to maintain service levels over the next 5 years. Our capital projects will include mostly vehicle replacement, maintenance of existing equipment and facilities. There are a couple of projects that are already underway that are enhancements, but there aren't many new or expanding projects on the capital side. That we're also assuming that there'll be a regular amount of funding each year for basic bus stop repair and improvement. Special projects that are unfunded. The TDP will identify special projects that are unfunded, but they will be identified as unfunded until there is an agreement from our funding partners to participate. And those may become feasible within the 5-year timeframe, but they will remain discretionary until we have local commitment. Some other things that we heard from the board as we were preparing the TDP was that the member agencies wanted to see what is contingent in our budget. So what are the things that are going to are necessary to maintain our existing service, and those things that might be necessary to enhance or expand our service, and identify those as contingent budget items, and that can help our funding partners differentiate between things that should be part of their base budget versus things that could be viewed as one-time funding requests. Our member agencies also wanted to see capital requests over the next 4 years outlined, and then be able to have some discussions as to whether or not they would prefer to see those funding requests averaged out or leveled out over those years, or requested as those investments come due. Member agencies also wanted to see the TDP move from what we had hoped to do every year to every 2 years. So we would expect to do this every 2 years going forward. And then our member agencies also asked us to update the title of the TDP from Transportation Development Plan to Transit Development Plan to reflect its focus on transit. And then just want to end kind of going over some of the schedules. So the TDP is a process that takes about 10 to 12 months to complete. When we begin each winter or spring to review what the TDP, what's included in TDP, start having conversations with our stakeholders. We did that last fall or last winter. And then as we move into the spring and summer, that transitions into following the annual budget process as we work with each of our funding partners to develop their upcoming fiscal year, so that by the fall, we sync up the TDP to match what the current budget year looks like. And then in November, bring the proposed TDP to the RAC, and in December to the executive board for the full board to consider in January. It's kind of the flow of the TDP development process. With
So,
that,
Stephen, to interrupt,
yeah,
it's a 5-year plan with a 2-year review.
5-year plan updated every 2 years. Yes.
Yeah, I just having trouble getting the math to work.
So it looks out 5 years, and then every second year you would extend it out another 5 years, review what's in it, and update it. Does that make sense?
Well, it looks to me like in a matter of about 10 years, you'd be out 100 years if I sat down and did the math.
You're only looking,
Every
looking at
2 years, we will extend it 2 more years. So
Okay,
this year we'll do 27 through
okay,
32, and then we'll do 29 through 30.
okay. You're not extending another 5, you're extending
Yeah.
2. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
You knew that, Mary Beth, right? Okay,
and that was the extent of that was what I wanted to share. So I just open up to any questions, Mr. Chair.
comments, thoughts? Is Happy Day Transit Facility the big one? Is it the hanging over your head capital item that don't have any real grip on how to rehab that facility or be able to fix it enough to keep it open? What, I get the buses.
Yeah.
I understand the rolling bus thing.
Yeah.
But
Happy Day
and
Transit
this,
Center.
and this facility, I don't know what the lease arrangements are and all that, but I'm sure it's set and fine. But Happy Day is
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you've heard us talk about the need to make improvements at Happy Day Transit Center for the last many years.
yeah,
And what the TDP is intended to do is allow us to have those conversations with our funding partners and say, what are the requirements, and be able to call out, we still have this need, right? And yes, that's probably our most uncertain capital liability out there of how we're going to fund it, but we continue to pursue multiple paths to get there.
So just
because your Gowan Road facility seems to be able to get funding to update, maintain, revise, revisit it
Yes.
on a regular basis. But it strikes me that over the years, short time that I've been on this, that Happy Day is the high hanging fruit that you can't reach.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Andrew?
Speaking of Happy Day, I know Jason got an earful over email, but I got stranded there one time, and there was me and 2 ladies, and none of us could get bus rides home. And sorry, Jason, for the email that I sent you on that. There needs to be phone chargers because one of the ladies had a dead phone. And
There are plugins in the lobby. Did she not have
she
a charger with
didn't,
her?
she didn't have a charger with her.
Okay.
But there needs to be phone chargers themselves.
So you were in the lobby? You were not outside the building, you were in the building? Okay.
So I will comment on that. We don't make phone chargers available anywhere else. We talked about doing some tables that did have charging equipment on them, but even with those, we wouldn't have cords for specific phones. We rely on people bringing their own for that. We do have power available in that lobby. And so understandable that it's hard when somebody doesn't have a phone that's charged up, but I guess that's maybe a larger issue than, and I'm not sure that VRT can provide chargers everywhere that passengers may be. We will provide power whenever we can, and we do at all of those sites. I would note on Happy Day, there's been a history of accepting less than what we ask for from Canyon County partners and utilizing everything that we did get for operating so that we got all the operations that we could possibly run in Canyon County because we knew how important that was. We are at a point with that building where if we don't do some of the work, we actually at one point thought we might lose our occupancy permit because of the heating and cooling issues that we've got. For instance, we've been able to overcome that with some temporary fixes, but as Walter noted, that facility needs a lot of work. So just know that we are both in discussions with our partners over there about some one-time capital funding. I think one of the challenges has been that when we ask for money through our regular cooperative agreement, it's always been viewed as base funding. And really, this is a capital need that is a one-time capital expense. And typically, most of those government partners look at capital expenses differently. So we've begun talking to them about that in that manner rather than as part of the cooperative agreement, part of a special assessment agreed upon by them for a one-time need. And I think we're in the process of making progress on that. The recent elections kind of put a little bit of a challenge in there because we've had so much change in both of our largest partners there, but have had early conversations with both the new mayors, and I think that we're still on track to make some progress. The other thing we're doing at Happy Day specifically, because it's in the small urban area, we're eligible to use financing method in Canyon County for transit-oriented development projects that isn't available in Ada County. It's not funding, it's financing, called TIFIA, Transportation Infrastructure Bank funding bonds. And so we're actually exploring doing a bigger redevelopment of that site using some of those bonds in a joint development project, which would potentially bring the local funding we'd need to do what we need to on the building, as well as build a income producing property that we'd share some of the income from. Long story to say, we're looking at everything that we can to see what the possible solutions are out there. Probably the quickest, shortest term thing that is possible is that we'll use not just transit formula grants, but potentially surface transportation block grants at a much lower match rate to be able to get at least the basics done so that the building is safe and our customer service staff has heat and air conditioning, which they don't have today, other than portable. So we are working on it. It is a big deal. As for Orchard, I think this does point out the difference. Orchard, we've always been able to, we have federal funding set aside to do the work at Happy Day. We don't have local match to complete that work. At Orchard, we've been able to do a lot of work because our partners in Ada County have been more forthcoming in their regular funding, especially the city of Boise. And so we've been able to match the grants that we've applied for and or the formula grants that we have to get the work done at Orchard.
And Mr. Chair, the only thing that I would add to that is that we have been able to make some progress on that using, even with the cost allocation model and the role that the Happy Day Transit Center plays as a regional facility. We've been able to make some progress on raising some local funds to match the HVAC investment that Elaine mentioned is part of that. We are on track to make some investments in Happy Day, but you brought up kind of the liability of maintaining that facility, and yes, that still is our largest kind of funded capital liability. But just want to say we're making some progress on that, and I think a big step in this last year was the funding that we did receive from our Canyon County partners, stepping up to essentially fully fund our requests, at least from the city of Nampa and Caldwell. We have other Canyon County partners that we'll continue to work with, but yeah.
Okay, questions for Stephen? Comments? Anything? Anything else, Stephen?
That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next item is my favorite of every meeting, which is to invite you to give us ideas, thoughts about topics. Again, we're not lacking topics, but we don't want to just roll along with what staff and Mary Beth and I can think of. We'd like for y'all to have some input into saying, can we talk about, should we talk about? The answer may or may not be yes or no, but until you talk to us, we can't tell you. So keep it in mind, things that you see out there, you hear that you think might be worthy of time at this meeting would be received by either staff or Mary Beth or I.
Well, can I jump in here too?
You may.
Mr. Chair. Sorry, I should be more formal. I was thinking this would be a good time to talk about topics and meeting locations for next year. I was going to put it as a separate agenda item, but it kind of seemed to fit within this one. So a couple of the topics that I've been contemplating, I think a pretty obvious one, a key one is going to be the digital accessibility. As Mel and I have been talking about that project, and as we've been trying to find ways for the RAC to get more engaged and provide more like tangible, usable feedback, I mean, that's a clear, great example, I think. So that's one I think we'll want to bring back, certainly in the first few meetings of the year, but I think maybe even on an ongoing basis, so we can kind of provide accessibility updates. Topically, accessibility at large, and then the digital piece specifically. We're also approaching our Title VI update in 2026, so we'll do an update to that document, and I think having the RAC's feedback in that would be great as well. Any other topic ideas?
Regarding meetings, locations, I would like to have us look at Main Street Station once it's done.
Great idea.
To talk about what it was, what it is now, and the changes that were made and the why and all that. We met down there once, and I think going back would be a good idea at some point.
Is February the joint meeting?
Yeah, I was
March.
just going to say, we are already planning to do a meeting down there in February for the executive board. And is that the joint meeting, Paula, or is it March?
It is the joint meeting, but we set it aside on their agenda on their calendar as a remote meeting. We'll just have to remember to change that before we send out the invites. And Jason, one other item that we wanted to talk about next year is to completely revamp the handbook You
Yeah.
can speak to that.
Before we go that, just let's stay on this topic. As we complete Main Street Station, the electrification, charging infrastructure is complete. We're redoing the floors, we're repainting, we're refreshing it all around. We won't have everything done by that February meeting, but we're also planning to have an event down there in April. And we will invite the congressional delegation, which were so instrumental in ensuring that we got the grant obligated to that. So we'll be planning that around the congressional recess that always happens in April. So just be aware of both of those. We'll let you guys know on your calendar. Also in February at Main Street Station, we are going to do a luncheon for the Transit Day at the Capitol. We decided that was probably the easiest, best way to get legislators down there to see what we have is just to close the East Bay and have the luncheon there.
Remember last year when you did that, I, for one, had no idea there was anything going on down at Main Street Station. I was sitting up at the Capitol waiting for the show to start and couldn't figure out why it hadn't. So just to,
Yeah, this year we're not doing the pre-event. We're just doing the post-event.
okay. But yeah, so keep that in mind. I'm a little confused. If RAC meets every other month,
I was just going to say, I need to correct myself. We do not meet in February. It's March. So the joint meeting would be,
to be determined and announced.
yeah.
Okay,
I would,
right. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
sorry, Mr. Chair. That's the first time I've said that. I would like to have another RAC meeting at the Happy Day, if possible, because that's a much easier ride for me. And it's a little selfish, I know, but it's much easier for me to get a ride to the Happy Day Transit than it is to get one all the way out here to Meridian, especially in the fog.
Be really nice to go there and see what's been accomplished, Stephen.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
didn't
ma'am.
we talk about having a meeting at Commission for the Blind downtown?
That was one of the locations
Yeah.
we talked about, yeah.
The list.
Yep.
Okay.
So if March we're having our joint meeting, then when would we be doing that meeting for the commission? Maybe later in the spring?
Little, let's
Not in
staff,
January?
let staff work through it.
Okay, great.
But yes, noted.
And as we do this assistive technology, we've already internally talked about the need to potentially go back to one of their board meetings with the plan that you all just move forward to the board.
Okay, please, if you haven't already, see if you can get time to read through the department staff reports. You will need time because, as always, Elaine doesn't just kind of lay around and watch this place work. She's up and gone and going everywhere. And I was told that the Minneapolis meeting that you mentioned in your report was a go and come back in the same day. Wow. Okay.
I did go to Minneapolis and come back the same day because I didn't want to have to spend the night and come. It's
Okay. We just
Yeah.
let you know how this lady's jumping all over the place. Also, note that as it's been mentioned, but not too specifically, that Transit Day at the Capitol will be February 12th. More to come, but you might check your calendars and see if you will be available or might need to move something in order to be available. If you can come, it'd be great. Having said that, y'all have fun because I will not be in town that day. So, anyway, okay, anything else from anyone? Remember that Jason and I forget your name, Nick, would be interested in talking to anyone that would like to talk to them. And Paula, ma'am?
Elaine, you want to make note of those little
We
handouts.
have these. So we have Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day service again. So I'm going to hand these out. There's one for each of you of both of these. Let me get one for Andrew. There's a limited number of seats available on access, not on beyond access, services for both Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day.
Oh.
And
Looks the same, but it's different.
it's always, I would hope at some point in the future we can do more of this for potentially beyond access, but right now we have the resources to do it for access customers. So anyone you know who relies on access, just let them know that they can get a ride on either Thanksgiving or Christmas if they book soon, so that, so especially the Thanksgiving one.
Anything else? With that, we are adjourned.